Alrighty guys, welcome back to the final video of the Crux build. This is just the finishing touches. Alright, here we go. Rolling. We are going to start by installing bottle cages.
And we will probably have one more final wrap-up video after Thomas gets some miles on this bike. We'll probably check in with him, see how he is liking it, see how everything is going, and see if he's made any tweaks or adjustment. Right now, Jake's getting some Loctite on these bottle cage bolts. That is important, especially with our tie hardware. Since the threads are cut so clean, these will often rattle their way out unless you put some Loctite onto the threads. We are using some Silca cages here. These are super sweet Silca titanium tubing cages. The finish on them is incredible. It's done by Agave Finish Works in this like bead blasted color. It's really nice stuff. If you've been watching Thomas's other build breakdowns, he always has these king cages on his
Silca.
Sorry, these Silca cages. King cage is a different version. He always has these Silca cages on his builds. They tend to let the bottles survive a little longer. If you have any bottles you like that have cool designs on them, a lot of different cages will scratch the designs off the bottle. And these do a really good job at keeping the design around without damaging the bottle. So we're getting these installed with some Better Bolts low profile water bottle cage bolts in copper. So those low profile, again, they're not necessary. If you had our standard profile, it would still sit well under that mounting surface, but the low profile just looks so much better.
I like to do the back cage first, that way you can kind of line up and see, all right, can I fit it on the bottom or can I fit it on the top?
Why would you want to run it on the bottom?
This is getting real nitty gritty, but lower center of gravity, I don't think it really affects anything. I also like having the bolt above just so you see the copper a little bit more.
See, I specifically wanted to ask you that because I always run mine on the bottom for center of gravity. I have absolutely no clue how much of a difference it makes, but to me, it's that peace of mind that I've done everything I can to lower the bike's center of gravity as much as I can.
That way I am solely to blame when I wash out in the corner.
One thing you do want to watch out for when you're installing cages like this is you can sometimes put this cage on too low where the bottom of the bottle will hit your frame here and it'll just mar it up a little bit. So you do want to make sure that you don't always slide that one to the very bottom of the track because sometimes either bottle will hit the frame. In this case, we have plenty of clearance, so it's not an issue, but I have had plenty of bikes where it's been an issue or where I've had the two bottoms of the bottles hit each other down there. But again, on this bike, it is not going to be a problem.
We had to measure with this size in particular to see if the Explorer post was going to fit or not. So the way you measure that is you have a rail to bottom measurement on the seat post. And what you want to avoid and what you want to make sure isn't going to happen is when you put your seat post in, it hits the gusset on the inside.
The rivet on the inside here where that bolt goes into, you want to make sure the bottom of the post clears. And Jake touched on it, but that rail to bottom measurement can be found on SRAM's website. That's something that we double check before getting the post. What we did was we measured how far down we could put a post in before it bottomed out.
Regular post.
A regular post before it would bottom out. And then we made sure that there was going to be enough room for our SRAM Explore post because Thomas really did want a dropper. Again, he's a mountain guy, he's used to it. As well as it does do a decent amount of benefit on a gravel bike. You just get a little bit more confidence, you get the seat out of the way. So for his sake, we wanted to get him a dropper post on this bike so that he has a little bit more comfortability when getting used to going off-road on a drop bar bike.
And honestly, valid concern. These gravel courses are getting gnarlier and gnarlier and gnarlier. So I think it was the right call to put a dropper on, especially with how comfortable he is on it. Now, this next part isn't totally necessary, but that is carbon paste. Do we need it? No. Because this is an aluminum bike and the post is also aluminum, doesn't particularly matter. You could just use regular grease, but with carbon paste, it's just like regular grease, but with a little bit more grit or sand in it. to help the post not slide down under harsh bumps, a lot of force, and whatnot.
So the specialized seat post clamps, they're all the exact same bolt, regardless of size. So we have that available on the website. And then that red grease in there is what you were seeing is the carbon paste, which again is just grease with some sand or some grit in it. And it just helps this mating surface actually clamp the post and allow it to not slide quite as easily. You can get away with some a slightly lower torque on the seat post clamp and still not have the seat slide up or down on you.
Another really cool thing that we added on was those right there. We have some slot storage in the bottom of specialized saddles. It's the same as your pollock cages. We like to add those. It's a nice little touch even if you're not using it. I just think it looks much better.
Yeah, these Specialized saddles are threaded on the bottom, and Specialized has quite a few different tools and lights and different things that can actually be installed on the bottom of these saddles, and it's actually super helpful. I like to use mine for, they have what's called the Bandit, which is like a tube CO2 tire lever kind of storage system. Thomas is using the Power saddle, the Power Pro Mirror, which is that 3D printed saddle from them. However, these threaded inserts are on every single model of Specialized saddle, even their lowest end ones. So you can put that sort of thing on everything. Jake's getting the seat post tightened in with our better bolts. This is the same as the Reverb. The Reverb seat post clamp bolt is the exact same as the SRAM Explorer. So for changing the seat angle, SRAM makes this pretty easy. All you have to do is have the seat post clamp a little bit loose, and then they have a tilt bolt right there in the middle. So you'll be able to just turn that back or one way or the other to adjust the angle of your seat. All right, we just had Thomas in the shop. We got his whole fit dialed in. He's running these XTR pedals with the narrow Q factor, so the shorter spindle length on here to give you a less open body position on the bike. So we're pretty much finished up with this build. Jake's gonna get the bars wrapped up here, and then after that, we're ready to do some glamour shots of this bike, a little final overview, and then off to the next video where we catch back in with Thomas after he's put some miles in on the saddle and let us know how he likes it. Tape-wise, we're gonna be running this Supacaz tape. It is the new gravel tape, which is just slightly more cushioning on the bars.
Now, for wrap, I'm pretty traditional. I like starting from the bottom and then just keeping it tight, not doing anything fancy. There's some people who double wrap, some people who reverse wrap.
I wanted to do a reverse wrap, but Jake had a really good point. It's just not a thing that I typically do when I ride, but Jake and Thomas were putting a lot of pressure right here. And when you reverse wrap, since basically the grain of the wrap is going the other way, you'll start to pull the ends of the wrap up. So it's a good idea for him and for Jake that we're gonna do just a standard wrap. That way that does not come up. I like it because when you do a reverse wrap, you're tapeless up here, and then you don't have any tape that's gonna come loose. I think it's a cleaner look.
It does look better.
And it's a little more difficult to pull off, but it does make sense for Jake and Thomas's use case here to do a standard wrap. All right, let's get into the details now. So I have a full list of MSRP of all the parts on this bike. Full disclosure, we were given a lot of parts at industry discount and some were just outright given to us, and I'll make sure to mention that. But I have a full list with MSRP so that we can see how much building this bike would cost. All right, so let's start with the easy part. Crux DSW frame set, $1,700. SRAM Red shifters and brakes, $675. XO cassette, 10 to 52 tooth, $400. That one surprised me. That was higher than I expected. GX Eagle derailleur transmission, $400. XO transmission chain, $100. That's a little more expensive than you need to go, but they don't make black unless you go XO. So we
Gotta match.
We had to match. Service course bars, $59. That was because we are testing Thomas's fit out. We actually don't know exactly where he wants to end up width-wise, so we went with some aluminum bars before he figures out exactly what size he wants.
That is subject to change. He's probably gonna go carbon at some point.
Service course stem, $60. That's probably not gonna change, and that's a good value. That's a great stem. Reverb Axis Explorer dropper, $633. I mean, there's really no other option for a dropper that I'd run on a bike. On a drop bar bike, I'm not gonna run a cable dropper. I don't like any of those cable actuated levers.
Me neither.
So if you're gonna run a dropper, you kind of have to bite the bullet on that one. That's kind of the only option. Industry 9 Solus SL AR40s. And I'm sorry I have to do this off of a sheet of paper. There's no way I'm remembering all of this.
That is my favorite part of the build. Those wheels by far.
These wheels are awesome.
Kiss.
Industry 9 Solus SL AR40s. And by the way, on all the SRAM stuff, we got industry pricing, and we got amazing industry pricing on these wheels. So we want to extend a huge thank you to Industry 9, as well as let you guys know that we did get helped out on some of these parts. $2,480 for this set of wheels. So on the pricier side for sure, but I mean, we knew it was gonna kind of bust our budget a little bit, but this was, I mean, it looks so good. S-Works Pathfinder tires, 2 of them, $70 a pop, so 140 bucks combined. 5-dev titanium cranks. Now they were super nice. They sent us these titanium cranks, and they looked so good on the bike. 5-dev titanium cranks, $1,200. And then the 5-dev aero chainring, another $200. Thomas is currently trying out a different crank length, so we swapped those off temporarily for him to try that out, but he did that before we filmed this part of the video. Power Pro Mirror saddle from Specialized. I don't see any other saddle you'd run. I have this on like every bike. I really like this saddle. $325. Dub bottom bracket, 30 bucks. As I said in the last video, that's like the most sensible bottom bracket you can get. It's just tried and true, bomb proof, and it's super cheap. Supercast bar tape, $45. XTR.
Gravel tape.
Yes, gravel tape.
Gravel tape.
A little more cushion.
A little thicker.
XTR PD M9100 pedals. These are the ones with the smaller Q factor, meaning your width is a little bit closer together. $180 for those. Shimano pedals. Ride Wrap was super kind. They sent out this full Ride Wrap kit. It is the Ride Wrap tailored kit, so the full coverage, $180.
That's a good value. A lot of people are going to say that's expensive. That's a really good value. It's
a really good value. You're protecting your bike. It's a really, really good value, and I've been starting to put it on most of my builds.
That's your entire resale value right there.
And then lastly, we priced out, we obviously didn't pay for this, the Better Bolts copper bolt kit. It's our product, but the kit that went on this bike was an MSRP of $205 if you were to get every bolt that we put on here. So that brings us to a grand total of $9,012. Thomas told us to stay under 6 grand. So Jake, I think we did a great job.
We are not accountants. That's why we work in the warehouse.
Yeah. No, in all seriousness, we were helped out by a ton of brands. 5-dev, Ride Wrap, Industry 9, a ton of our Specialized stuff was on huge industry discount. Again, and then all of our SRAM stuff. So, you know, we're in the industry, we're building these bikes, but huge thank you to all the brands that helped out with this build. It makes this sort of thing possible. When going over to the budget on a build like this, it really shows how well some of Specialized pricing works out for you. For example, a Crux Pro is $7,500. And that's gonna be carbon wheels, you're gonna have carbon bars,
carbon frame,
full carbon frame, and you're coming in, you know, $1,500 below this. You're not gonna have red, it's gonna be force, and you're not gonna have transmission. You'll have a standard XPLR force drivetrain. However, that's a absolute killer build. A lot of Specialized pre-built bikes are sweet and super well optioned and leave some room for upgrade if you wanted to go that route.
I agree. It's really hard to beat Specialized, especially when it comes to just complete builds. They price everything really aggressively, and that's really nice.
Yeah, and it's a great way of showing that custom builds almost always get out of hand.
Always.
I call it scope creep. You know, you end up like, oh, this is just slightly nicer and slightly nicer and slightly nicer. And it takes you a while to accumulate all these parts, and it's a smaller hit to your wallet, and you don't quite notice, and you get to the end and you look at the bill and you're like, oh no, that was a lot more than I thought. I
don't know if you've done this, but you go, oh, I'll cheap out on this part and I'll buy a less expensive one, and then you start riding the bike.
Splurge?
So and then you start riding the bike and you're like, oh, I should have just gotten the better thing, and then you get the better
Now you
thing,
bought it twice.
and now you bought it twice.
Yeah, I've done it in the past where I've cheaped out on something like cranks, and I've been like, since I saved 50 bucks on cranks, I can spend $200 extra on the drivetrain. And then
still spend them.
So now you've spent the money anyway. So the pre-built bikes are awesome. And building a custom bike is a great way to get exactly what you're looking for. But something to be wary of is it almost always ends up being more expensive.
Always.
Yeah. What's up, guys? I have Thomas here. We are doing the first look. He hasn't really seen the bike since it was in like a skeleton stage when we were getting his fit set up. So this is his first impression of the bike we put together for him. And Thomas, what do you think?
Man, it came out insane. Like, just the little parts that came together along the way are really popping, and the frame color looks really cool. Unbelievably impressed with how it came out.
Yeah, this thing, like, everything works together. These 5-dev cranks, they're pretty sweet. I may have to pick up a set for my Crux. This is really cool. I'm a fan of the aero disc. It looks really sweet. Personally, I haven't tried out the transmission, but as we mentioned in the earlier videos, it was because he's used to mountain, so this will be a lot more of a kind of at-home feel for him. So
yeah, it's my first bike with transmission, and I'm excited to give it a test. Like, you know, one of the things I told you guys was I want to go climb some steep stuff, and when 1x13 Explorer came out, I was really tempted to go with that, but I'm really glad that you guys ended up with the 52 in the back with the GX cassette and the GX derailleur. I'm excited to take this out some steep climbs.
these SRAM levers, the new red, they're awesome. You have so much adjustability. That hook comes in quite a bit further. They're a lot easier to get your fingers on. They're pretty sweet. I'm pretty jealous of those red levers.
And what'd you guys go to for programming the dropper? Like, what?
So right now we have it set up in the default setting. That's the way that I personally would run it. It's what I'm used to, but this whole thing's perfectly programmable. So right now we have your shift down on the right-hand side, shift up on the left-hand side. If you press them together, that will actuate the dropper. And that goes the same for the blips up here. But what we're going to do is we're gonna remap, we just haven't done it yet in the video, but we'll remap this blip to shift up and this one to shift down so that you can one hand shift. So you'd be able to go down with this, up with this, or on the other side, you'd be able to go up with this, down with this. That way, you can, if you ever were drinking or on the phone, whatever, I know you got to take calls on the ride sometimes, you'll be able to shift and ride with one hand. I personally think actuating with both fingers is the best, and that allows us to do the shift with one hand method. But if you ever wanted to, if you aren't shifting with one hand, or if you only want to be able to shift with this hand, we can program just this one button to actuate the dropper if we wanted to. That's the cool thing with the SRAM setup, is that it's fully programmable.
Awesome. Yeah, then when it came to the dropper, like, I'm 5'9" with the 31-inch inseam. And so to maximize dropper posts, I always have to do a lot of measuring to make sure it's perfect. And I think we got this one perfect. You guys fit the dropper on, so really excited about having a dropper.
Yeah, I mean, it's not new to me to have to measure droppers. I struggle with the same thing on mountain bikes. I'm always like trying to squeeze in like an extra 10 mil. I have like a 160 on my Enduro and I have it slammed all the way down. I struggle with that as well. So, we explained earlier in the video, but we had to pull out all the schematics and really make sure this would fit. And we have, like a 1/4 of an inch before this thing bottoms out into the frame. So maximum drop available, but it is going to give you a lot more confidence on descents when the seat's out of the way.
Very cool. And then I've never really ridden a drop bar bike, so one of the things that kept me up at night was stem length and the bar bend, and I ended up going with the kind of trusting your guys' judgment on like matching my suit width, which is like between a 38 and a 40, so we went 40 there. But I'm really excited to throw my leg over this bike and just feel where the hoods are at, where the bars are at, and how that all landed. Yeah,
it's gonna be sweet. We have a small amount of adjustment. We can always, tweak the bar angle and the hood angle, but also we have different inserts that go into this zip stem that allow us to change the angle of the drop, whether we want neutral or -6 or +6. So we have a little bit of room to mess around. This may not end up being the final configuration once we figure out exactly what we want to run. However, this is a great start for a long time to really get some miles in and figure out what's comfortable, because when you are starting out, there's like 50 things that you have to change and try to figure out what you like. So
I think one of my you know, just looking at the bike built and completed for the first time, the bronze color from i9 and that Solix hub tying in with the copper color from Better Bolts around the whole bike, like in kind of the, I'll call it earthy tones of the of the build, like it really brings it together around that copper and bronze color.
Absolutely. This is a super classy build. Nothing's crazy flashy, nothing's like stand out in your face. But if you saw this, you'd take a double, you'd be like, wow, this is clean, it's classy, everything was picked out properly. There's just enough silver accents with the cage and the cranks and the brakes, but not too much. And then same with the copper, the hubs match the copper bolts. It's just, it looks so good.
I think next up is a first ride.
Yeah, we'll meet back up with you guys after Thomas gets some miles in. Maybe we'll do a ride video. That'll be sweet. So stick around and be ready for the next one. We appreciate you guys watching this build series. It really helps out with us doing cool builds like this and bringing more videos to you guys. So make sure you're subscribed and stick around for the next one.
Yeah.